All right, we're going to talk about a horror movie that's challenging really the movement of what is horror. I like this kind of aspect of like, let's try this, let's template. So it's really a template of exploratory filmmaking of a horror movie, especially this one. I'll get to talk about more of it later.
Yeah, very small film and a very quiet place with a kind of a film.
Right, yeah. So let's get into Azrael.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kyle from Kyle and Nick on Film, but I can't talk much.
Right, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. I'm not part of the cult in this movie, so I'm going to talk. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for your continued support of the show. Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Association. That's what we're called now. So you can find our critics' reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about a little one that kind of slipped under the radar, I think, a little bit. It just was available for streaming services. On Amazon Prime, it's Azrael.
In the years following the rapture, society has gone silent. Azrael, attempting to survive on her own, has been taken by a cult who hope to sacrifice her in order to appease the evil force in the wilderness all around them.
Okay, I like when independent filmmakers take kind of risks because there's not a lot of dialogue. Intentional. There's not a lot of talking, no really long talking heads, so you really have to challenge yourself for how you make it compelling, well, scenery, landscape, camera angles, and dynamic acting, right? And you get that quite a bit. I don't think you get the first word into about an hour in. So you really have to get the setting. Not to mention, if you don't have a lot of dialogue, you can take the boom mic and you can have actors 10 feet in front of the camera, so you can absorb a lot of the scene, and you'll see that when you see this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like losing a sense, and then all your other senses get to become a little bit more heightened.
Yeah. It's a story that you've seen before. It's nothing really new. There's bad monsters in the woods, and there's bad people in the world, and sometimes they're even worse than the monsters.
Exactly, yeah. It reminded me a lot of, Arcadian, which was a film we covered earlier this year. I think there's a film called like Evacuation that's in theaters right now, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah.
We've had Quiet Place sequels out this year. Like this idea has been done many times.
Yeah.
Again, I think this one is kind of an improvement on maybe the Arcadian film while not being as good as the classic Quiet Place structure.
Yes.
And it might just be the fact that they use kind of the same motif as Quiet Place with being quiet.
Right, and this is more, I have the right temperament of the monsters. You get the right, you don't get bombarded with it, but you don't get not enough. You get the right amount of them. You get one giant big scare, and then you reveal why their senses are hunted by smell. Obviously, their sight is gone, but you get the right temperament. But also, you get this character, Samara Weaving. My God, every movie she has to get bloody.
Oh, yeah. The Samara Weaving Gets Bloody universe is doing quite well right now.
Yeah, caked in blood and dirt and really punching it and really getting at it. Overall, I think it's a solid horror movie. It's going to challenge people because it's not just a popcorn horror movie. This is kind of exploratory filmmaking.
Yeah, I think it's,
Let's see what we can do with the camera lens really opened up in spaces.
Yeah, I wasn't gaga. I didn't hate the movie. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, that's the whole
because
point.
it's a lot of we've seen before, and especially we've seen a lot recently. It's kind of like, we had our Armageddon and our Deep Impact, but then imagine like 4 more Deep Impacts have come out in the past year. It's just, it's an idea that's been overdone a lot, and I feel like as far as the writing goes, Simon Barrett, who scripted this film, he does a really great job with dialogue. He does a really great job with kind of getting hooks into the film. And so I feel like having him craft something that doesn't have any dialogue to it kind of feels like a loss. It's kind of like when when you find that footing.
Kind of goes a whole speech of it's challenging to the viewers of what you want to do. Also, probably challenge himself. I'm really good at writing. Well, let's do something writing dialogue. Let's take that out and see if we can maintain a good script. And I think everybody's trying to challenge themselves to an idea of what you can do for a horror movie.
I think the hook is really interesting though. Like opening with there's the rapture and we've got people who've torn out their
They're not.
vocal
You don't have to
cords.
sit there in exposition forest all day.
Yeah, and that's the best thing about doing a rapture film set after the rapture. You don't have to show the high CGI volume of the rapture. You get to show what happens afterwards.
And you're on location in the woods. We've seen this before, and that's the one nice thing is it's a recycled material for a script. I would like if you challenge yourself about how you make a movie, if you challenge yourself about writing and acting, challenge yourself about a story that we've never seen before.
Yeah, because I think the one moment in the film that I felt like was the best scene in the film was when she gets picked up by the guy with the pickup.
Yes.
And he's checking over her wounds. He's making sure she's okay. It's a moment in the film that I was actually kind of taken aback by the tenderness that was being, between these two people who don't know each other, who've never wanted to trust each other because they're not in a situation where you can trust other human beings. The tenderness that just surprised me for that scene. I was hoping that we'd spend more time with him.
Yeah.
Because I thought
but
that
we'd
sequence
spend more
built
time
up.
with this execution tree trap thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish we had more of the with them. It's almost like getting the Jamie Lee Curtis getting picked up in the movie The Fog.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Are you weird? Oh yeah, I'm totally weird. Oh good, thank God. That kind
What we needed was Tom Atkins in the film.
Yes, we need Tom Atkins to pick up Jamie Lee Curtis like in The Fog, right?
Yeah, but I agree with you. Like, there's bits and pieces of it that I think really, really work. And I think the monsters work. For being low budget, they're creepy looking. They pop out of seemingly nowhere. Yeah. And I like that there's kind of like a zombie gate to them while not being really zombies. They're kind of a different thing. I would have liked to have seen them elaborated on in terms of like, what's the story more about them? Because we don't really spend a lot of time in dealing with it. I mean, we've just dealt with the rapture. This is a major biblical size event. I'd love to have known a little bit more about that, but how do you do it without saying anything?
This movie is trying to talk also about the occult and cults and religions without really saying much. That's a challenge in itself, because I would like a little more exploratory about this cult formation and how you get this birth that all of a sudden doesn't really seem like it fits the whole narrative of the story.
Yeah. I think what this movie could have really benefited from, and I know that the exercise is not to use dialogue, but give me one character that's willing to speak. Give me one person that can say something, like kind of a box or something like that, where he can like speak with her really quick and kind of like they can have a dialogue that at least gives us a little bit more fleshing out of the situation, because it does kind of get lost in traditional formulaic filmmaking, even though it's kind of trying to grapple with a really interesting concept.
Right, because that ending doesn't feel like it fits all the journey we're doing with trying to escape monsters in the woods, and now we're jumping into something like The First Omen.
Yeah, we got to that part in the ending, and I literally said, "Hold up," and then the movie cut to black, and I was like, "Wait, it's coming back." It didn't really do so.
So the explanation, I don't know if you want me to talk about it. It's almost like the apocalypse happened, and this is like the remnants of the leftovers, like the good people are already gone.
Yeah,
or something like that.
And again, like that's a really good hook, because we don't spend a lot of time post rapture. It's a weird thing. We don't spend a ton of time
very
dealing with
biblical
that.
rapture happening.
Yeah, usually the apocalypse is, it's gas and it's burning out the sun, and all of our apocalypses are very much like man-made in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see this more fleshed out, because we don't actually deal with the rapture very often.
I would like have something like look up in the sky, like some kind of being having hands, or gigantic hands reaching out from the sky, or something mythical happened.
Yeah, like the giant naked demon in This Is the End. That's
like
around.
The hand coming out from the hell, like in Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah,
something like that. Okay.
But unfortunately, that's also something that's extremely expensive. So, like, I get it. But, yeah, I think this movie could have benefited from, I think, just a more accomplished director. I like E.L. Katz for what he did with like The Haunting of Bly Manor. He directed a couple episodes.
Well, the problem is if you put the characters 20 feet away, there's a disassociation with the audience seeing them.
That's true.
You want close proximity. You want them to relate. From here, it almost feels like you're so far away. Who the hell cares?
Yeah, because we benefit
from that intimacy.
We benefit from knowing Samara Weaving as a scream queen. Like, we benefit from knowing her. And I recognize Nathan Stewart Jarrett, who is in the film. He's kind of the guy that she keeps coming across as the narrative goes on. He was in the Candyman reboot. I think he was pretty solid in that Candyman reboot, and I would have liked to have seen, like, I want to know the other characters in the film, because she's really the only one who I would consider a character, whereas the cult is kind of its own big character. But yeah, fleshing out some of those characters, it's tough to do, though. How do you do that without speaking? That's the hook that they probably needed to figure out.
So, what do you think of our assessment of Azrael? I like that you challenge yourself about making art, but sometimes the final product does not flush out to what you wanted to challenge yourself to.
Oh yeah, and I'll take ambition and risk, even if it doesn't pay off over traditional. Yeah, and there's some ambition and risk to this film, which I can always appreciate.
Yeah. But I don't know if I want to go back.
Yeah, that's the thing. I can't tell you the number of times I've watched A Quiet Place since it's come out. I can't tell you the number of times I was excited to see a new installment of that film, even though those are all kind of the same story that we've been dealt. but it's just because they have that little bit of narrative heft to them that lifts them up.
Well, before we go, Quiet Place has a lot of dramatic irony. You, as an audience, you see some things that the characters don't know that's happening. That you have like a build-up. All of a sudden, the characters don't know the monstership now. We see it.
Oh, yeah.
We don't see something like that in this movie, and I think that's kind of a audience. I understand the psychology of the audience. Like, would you watch A Quiet Place? Like, oh my God, look behind you.
Maybe that's that would have been a good I think for the director of this film, because we don't really spend time speaking to the audience with the narrative and giving them the information, because you don't actually need people to talk to give information to the audience. There's great, visual storytelling in the Quiet Place films where, like, for example, like that nail that's sticking up out of the thing. It's Chekhov's nail. She's eventually going to step on it.
Yeah.
You know, with the water leaking in, it's eventually going to overflow. Like, you've got that prep.
I have no idea why we'd listen to this hole in the wall that breathes out the wind. I have no idea.
Exactly.
Why? Right. But I understand the nail.
Yep, exactly.
So, keep the conversation going. Make a comment down below. Hit the like and subscribe button. Tell your friends about the show.
Yeah, and leave a comment in the bottom section. You're telling us what's your favorite not Quiet Place of the many films that have kind of covered this. We'd like to know your favorites. So, thank you once again for joining us. And I guess we just leave it at silence.